We've been praying for you, baby. He's fighting though, and Mama D smoothed his hair while he was still crying. Scrappy swallowed his throat dry, and his eyes wandered to Bambi, who choked on a sob and nodded. Of course I did, and I'm not going anywhere. Although Scrappy's body was exhausted and his breathing was still weak, he managed to smile for the first time in days. The room was filled with hope, but as soon as relief began to set in, the doctor's expression took a serious turn. Fantastic step, but Scrappy's condition is still fragile, and we don't know the full extent of the damage yet. His body has been through a lot. Mama D wiped her eyes. Where are you staying, doctor? Will he be okay? We need to do more tests because it's possible that his organs were traumatized in the previous episode, which is why he hesitated. We still don't know what caused this sudden relapse, and Bambi's stomach was twisted. What do you mean that you don't know? We have theories. Overexertion, even dehydration, but something caused this collapse until we realized that Scrappy is still in danger. The room fell silent, and the fear that had been gone for a moment returned. Mama D took Scrappy's hand and squeezed it tightly, asking, "Have you been feeling sick or anything different before this happened?" Scrappy's brows knitted as he attempted to remember that his voice was horror, but he was just tired. Bambi and Mama D exchanged a troubled glance. "You pushed yourself too far," she whispered. "Not sleeping, not eating right, Scrappy." "Man, I just wanted to keep moving, keep my mind busy." Mama D's face hardened. "You mean keep your mind off her?" She glanced at Bambi. "Don't start, Bambi." Tense. Scrappy's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "I cared, so I didn't come here to attack thee. You are concerned, I see." Where was that concern when he was out here, wallowing in his own suffering? With a sigh, he murmured, "Stop it, both of you." The dispute ceased suddenly, and he exhaled deeply. "I don't have time for this, not here, not now," Bambi murmured when she swallowed hard. Grabbing his hand once more, she wiped away her tears and replied, "You're right." After giving her a long look, Scrappy nodded slightly and said, "At this point, everything that matters is getting you better." After the doctor examined Scrappy's monitors, you were found to be stable for the time being. Nonetheless, the following 48 hours are: we need to monitor your heart, check your oxygen levels, and perform further tests. I want you to sleep. Scrappy grinned complacently, but he was at a loss for what to do. After Mama D kissed his forehead, he murmured, "You rest, baby. Mom will be right here." Bambi touched his hand lightly, "And I'm doing the same." As Scrappy's eyelids drooped, everyone's thoughts were still plagued with the question of whether he would make it through the night. The battle had just begun, not over. 3,300 word call to action. Although the hospital room was silent, the drama regarding Scrappy's health was still going strong. Whether he recovers fully or if this is just a prelude to a storm depends on what transpires next. It's critical to keep in mind that this was more than just a medical emergency. Upon his breakdown, Scrappy disclosed severe injuries, upsetting realities, and unsolved issues between him and, since Scrappy's life is in jeopardy, the public is talking, and the drama is far from done. We need to know what you think caused Scrappy's health to deteriorate so rapidly. Was it stress from working too much? Or is there something else going on that we should know about? Could they use this as a wake-up call to get back together, Bambi? Or was the harm already too great? How about Mama D? Will she ever be able to forgive Bambi, or will their conflict simply worsen? Is this medical scare going to help Scrap Happy and Bambi reconcile, or is it simply another chapter in their tumultuous romance? Kindly leave your opinions in the space provided for comments below. Additionally, if you wish Scrappy a quick recovery, remember to click the like button. Subscribe to receive the most recent updates, considering this story is far from over. The next thing she saw devastated her, but she had to be sure he would be all right. Through the window of the intensive care unit, she caught a glimpse of Scrappy lying on a hospital bed, with stationary cables attached to his body and equipment monitoring his every breath. Then she realized that this was worse than she had imagined, as doctors gathered around him in solemn whispers. She pressed her hands to the glass and screamed, Baby, you got to fight, you hear me? However, the real shock arrived a few seconds later when Bambi appeared. For those who were unaware, Scrappy and Bambi's relationship has been turbulent, to put it bluntly, with public arguments, divorce rumors, nasty drama on social media, and many people wondering if she would show up this time after watching him in the hospital the last time. According to insiders, she was momentarily unsure and questioned whether she still had a role in his life after everything that had transpired between them when she first received the call. This time, Mama D called Bambi, regardless of what was going on with everyone else. She uttered in a quivering voice, "If you ever love my son, you need to get down here now." A few minutes later, Bambi was seen hastily entering the hospital, clearly terrified but completely uninformed because everything went haywire the moment Mama D saw her. Mama D crossed her arms and exclaimed, "Oh, you care." Bambi took a deep breath after struggling and made an effort to remain calm. "You shouldn't do this right now. We're tenacious. Don't you talk to me about Scrappy's needs." Mama D gave an angry response. "You want to be there because you abandoned him when things go bad again." Tears filled Bambi's eyes. "You have no idea how hard I've been going." The tension was intense in the waiting room. Nurses looked at each other nervously, unsure whether to intervene or not, before the conflict could. There was stillness when the doctor, who looked worn out, mumbled, "We need to talk about Scrappy's condition." With her hand shaking, Mama D turned to the doctor and pleaded with him to explain her son's situation. The doctor looked down at the chart he was holding inside. "Several tests have been performed, and there are problems." Bambi made improvements, but regrettably, things have gotten worse. "We wanted his body to react well to the medication. His vitals are unstable, and his organs are under stress at the moment. No matter how hard we try, we have to be ready for anything. Are you saying my baby might not make it?" "Mama," he said, and the doctor did not respond right away. His silence was more terrible than any words he could have said. She felt her breath catch in her throat. Bambi glanced away, unable to comprehend what she was hearing, and Mama D knelt, gripping the chair's side. There was silence in the waiting area, which underlined the doctor's statements as he threatened to reveal the truth, that Scrappy's life was in jeopardy. Mama D's heart was racing and her hands were shaking. She wasn't prepared for this. She couldn't believe her son, her baby, was dying in front of her. Bambi, unable to focus, brushed away her tears and whispered, "There must be more you can do, doctor. Just a few days ago, he was okay. What led to this?" His body wasn't responding to the medication as we had hoped. So SED, the doctor, was going over the records and conducting additional tests to identify the issue. He was losing oxygen and his heart was pounding. He needed some miracle now, but we were doing everything we could. Mama D gave the doctor a sympathetic look and shook her head angrily, saying, "I don't accept that. You fix this, you. You fix my son." The eyes of Bambi opened in amazement as Mama D screamed, "This is your fault." Her voice trembled as she said, "You walked out on him. You broke him. You put him through all that stress, and now look at him. He's in there fighting for his life." This was before he left, leaving the family in total chaos. After you left, Scrappy never was the same, acting as though nothing was wrong. "Are you serious right now?" she asked. "I know Mama D, she's Mama Showstack. However, his body has just given up because of the stress you have caused him," and Bambi's eyes are now full of tears. He stopped eating, slept very little, and his entire world fell apart, and I witnessed the anguish as she shook her head and backed away, saying, "That's unfair." Her voice cracked. "I left because I had to, but Mama D wasn't hearing that. You left him when he most needed you, and now when it's almost too late, you want to go back right away." "It didn't happen this way. I was attempting to defend myself. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get much worse." The ICU alarm went off, and a nurse rushed in with a scared look on her face. "Scrappy and I were hurting each other and were poisonous, but that doesn't imply caring." The waiting area felt like a war zone. When they arrived at the location where Scrappy's condition is rapidly worsening, Mama D's breath caught and Bambi gripped her chest, her whole body shaking. Without thinking, both women pushed past the nurse and rushed to Scrappy's room, but before they could get inside, two security guards blocked their way. One of them yelled, "You can't be in here right now," and Mama D lost it. The guards held their ground, and the doctors and nurses surrounded Scrappy's bed to continue their work. The nurse shouted, "Get the crash cart," and another said. The sound of the beeping flatlining sent chills down Bambi's spine. Then there was silence, and for what felt like an eternity, doctors performed CPR injections, shock paddles, and other treatments in an attempt to revive Scrappy, whose body was convulsing slightly. His chest was rising and falling unevenly, and his oxygen was crashing. As a doctor said, "Like forever a miracle we that a pulse," the waiting room erupted in SBS of relief, but the danger had not yet passed. Scrappy was still alive, but barely, and the lead doctor emerged into the hallway looking exhausted. "Thank you, Jesus. We were able to stabilize him for the time being, but he is still in critical condition, and the next few hours are everything." Amadou said straight away, "I'm going first." She wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and entered Scrappy's room. She was devastated to see Scrappy lying there with his face pale, his lips dry, and machines beeping steadily all around him. He was being kept alive by a breathing tube, and she sat next to him and took his hand, saying, "Baby, it's me, Mama's here," with her fingers twitching slightly. "You have to fight Scrappy, you hear?" Simply sitting there with his hand and whispering prayers, she reluctantly got up and faced the door, nodding to Bambi to signal that it was her turn, taking a deep breath and wiping away her tears before entering. Her heart shattered at the sight of him, so she rushed to his side, took his hand, and pressed it to her cheek. When Scrappy didn't answer, she had to switch swallows. "You're going to be okay," he said in a whisper, although her voice was shaking. "I know that things between us have been difficult, and perhaps you don't even want to see me at this time, but I want you to know that I never stopped loving and caring for you." She sniffed, clinging to him as though he were going to vanish, and then her heart stopped, "Scrappy." She squeezed his hand and whispered. It was weak and faint, but there was a tiny flicker of life. Bambi nodded and shuddered, and as she sat next to him, clinging to him as if he were her lifeline, it became painfully clear that this was not just a health battle, a fight for his life, and no one knew how this story would end. With dim fluorescent lights and steadily beating machines, the hospital room felt like a battleground. A doctor stuck his head in, and he tried to answer, but he was too weak right now. "The next 24 hours are crucial, so we just have to wait. You have to fight, Scrappy. You have to return to us," she said, causing Scrappy's eyes to flicker. "Your family needs you. I need you." Mama entered with a creak, her face motionless, and Bambi sat motionless, tearing his hand, her pulse racing, whispering again, and squeezing his fingers in a desperate attempt to get a response. Mother D took a deep breath and hurried to Scrappy's bedside, placing a trembling hand on his forehead and moving her lips in silent prayer. "Oh Lord, please bring my baby back to me." The tension in the air was unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity. Every breath felt heavier, and then again, Scrappy's fingers twitched, his eyelids moved, and a faint groan slipped from his lips. But did Bambi look up? He waited until Scrappy's eyes opened slowly and painfully. His lips parted slightly, the machines beeped a little faster, and his breathing, though shallow, seemed a little stronger. Mama D grabbed Bambi's arm, and he sobbed and nodded angrily, trying to wake her up, saying, "Come on, Scrappy, you can do this. Just open your eyes, baby." Bambi grabbed his hand and yelled, "You scared us so bad, Scrappy." Hoarse whisperer Mama D sobbed as she grabbed his face and cried out violently, "Oh, my baby, you're back. Thank you, Jesus." The doctor quickly arrived, checked his vitals, and Scrappy blinked sluggishly, his voice barely audible, his face hazy with confusion. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I shouldn't be conscious yet." "Sweetheart, you have been in our prayers. However, he is still battling, and Mama D combed his hair while he was still in tears. With a dry swallow, Scrappy's gaze strayed to Bambi, who nodded and choked on a sob. Scrappy managed to smile for the first time in days, despite his body being fatigued and his breathing still being feeble. "Of course I did, and I'm not going anywhere." Hope filled the room, but the doctor's face took a severe turn as soon as relief started to sink in. "Excellent move, but we still don't fully understand the magnitude of the injury, and Scrappy's health is still precarious. He's had a lot of physical trauma." Mother D dabbed at her eyes. "You're staying where, doctor? Will he be all right?" "He might have hesitated since his organs were damaged in the last incident. Therefore, we need to run more tests." The reason for this abrupt relapse is still unknown, and Bambi was upset. "By not knowing, do you employ something? We had theories. Dehydration or maybe overexertion. But whatever induced this collapse until we discovered Scrappy was still in danger." After a little lull, the room became quiet, and the anxiety returned. Bambi and Mama D exchanged a worrisome look as Mama D took Scrappy's hand and gripped it tightly, saying, "Have you been feeling sick or anything different before this happened?" Scrappy's brows knitted as he tried to remember that his voice was horror, but he was just tired. Mama D's face tightened as she said, "You pushed yourself too far. Not sleeping, not eating right, Scrappy." "Man, I just wanted to keep moving, keep my mind busy." "You mean keep your mind off her?" She looked at Bambi and said, "Don't start, Bambi. You are worried, I see. Where was that worry when he was out here, moping in his own misery?" Scrappy's eyes sparked with something unreadable. "I cared, so I didn't come here to attack thee." He sighed and said, "Stop it, both of you." The argument abruptly stopped, and he let out a deep breath. "I don't have time for this, not here, not now," Bambi muttered as she swallowed forcefully. Taking his hand again, she wiped away her tears and said, "You're right." Scrappy looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slightly and said, "At this point, everything that matters is getting you better." The doctor checked Scrappy's monitors and found that he was stable for the time being, but the next 48 hours are, "I want you to sleep." Scrappy smiled complacently, but he had no idea what to do. Mama D kissed his forehead, and he whispered, "You rest, baby. We need to monitor your heart, check your oxygen levels, and do more tests." The war had just begun, not finished, and as Scrappy's eyelids drooped, worries about whether he would survive the night continued to nag at everyone's minds. "Mom will be right here," Bambi said, tenderly touching his hand, "and I'm doing the same." Despite the silence in the hospital room, the drama surrounding Scrappy's health was still going strong, and it will be important to remember that this was more than just a medical emergency. During his breakdown, Scrappy revealed serious injuries, distressing realities, and unresolved issues between him and. We need to know what you think caused Scrappy's health to deteriorate so quickly. Was it stress from working too much? Or is there something else going on that we should know about? Because her life is in danger, the public is talking, and the drama is far from over. How about Mama D? Will she ever be able to forgive Bambi? Or will their conflict only get worse? Do you think this medical scare will help Scrap Happy and Bambi get back together? Or is it just another chapter in their turbulent romance? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to click the like button if you want Scrappy to get well soon. Subscribe to get the latest developments, given that this tale is far from over.